Okay, so what I want to do now in this lesson today, I want to continue on from where we left off in the last lesson. So we talked about the coronavirus, and we talked about if you go down into the very fundamental part of the coronavirus, it's made up of these what are known as elements. Okay, so we have there's some hydrogen in there, there's some carbon, there's some nitrogen, and there's some oxygen, and there's some potassium. Now what I want to do is I want to focus on this periodic table and focus on like what an element actually is. So if we zoom in here and we have a look. So if we look at oxygen, for example, so we can see here that oxygen, there's a couple of different numbers associated with oxygen. So first of all you have the symbol, okay, so it's just O. Then you have like this bigger number that's on the bottom, and you have this smaller number that's on the top. Now the number that's on the top, this number 8 for example, is what's known as the atomic number. And the number that's on the bottom is what's known as the mass number. Now if we zoom out and we look at the periodic table, what we'll notice is that there is a pattern there. So as we move from left to right across the periodic table, we can see there that the atomic number for hydrogen in this case is 1, helium is 2, lithium is 3, and it keeps moving on in that direction. So the atomic number from left to right, it's ordered as per the atomic number. So you start off, the first element is hydrogen, it starts off with 1, the atomic number is 1, and it moves all the way right down there to element 102. So this element down here, for example, would have 102 as its atomic number. Now what I want to think about is, what does that actually mean? What does the atomic number represent, and what does the mass number represent? So if I'm just going to draw out the oxygen one here, okay? So if we think about oxygen, so we have this O. So O is what's called the chemical symbol. So chemical symbol. We have the atomic number, which is 8. Okay, so that's the atomic number. Okay, and then the number at the bottom, which is 15.999. This is what's known as the mass number. Mass number. So when we're looking at this, so we have the chemical symbol, we have the atomic number, and we have the mass number. So what do these numbers actually represent? So if we have a look over here, so this here is a representation of an atom of oxygen. Okay, so if we think about, so if we have a look here, we'll just name the parts. Okay, so these blue parts that are on the outside here, these are what are known as electrons. Okay, so we have electrons. In the middle then, these electrons, they move around in orbits. Okay, and sometimes they're called shells. So we can see here we have, for example, this electron here, it moves around. So in this shell we have 1, 2, 3, 4 electrons, and they move around within this shell. If we go then into the middle here, so the middle, so this, let's say this whole piece in the middle is what's known as the nucleus of the cell, or of the atom. So it's known as the nucleus. Okay, just bear with me. Okay, nucleus of the atom. Now, within the atom then, you have these red guys, or what are known as protons. Okay, and they actually carry a positive charge. The electrons here on the outside, they carry a negative charge. And then you have these guys here, the Ns, okay, which are known as neutrons. And they don't carry any charge. Okay, so there's no charge on that. Now, if we have a look here, so just count the number of protons that are within the nucleus there. So just pause the video and count the number of protons. So if we count the number of protons, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So we have 8 protons. Now, if you notice, the number of protons that are in the nucleus of the atom corresponds with the atomic number that you see, for example, on the periodic table. So when we look at the periodic table here, we see that the atomic number for oxygen is 8. And then when we go and we look into the nucleus of an atom of oxygen, okay, like what we've done here, we can see here that we have 8 protons. So the number of protons that are within the nucleus of an atom is represented by what's known as the atomic number. So that's what makes oxygen oxygen. It's the number of protons that are present here. If you change the number of protons that are present within the nucleus of an atom, it changes the atom. You'd have a different atom. Like, for example, if you were to add in one more proton in there, what would happen is that would be a different atom. So instead of having 8 protons, it would have 9 protons. And if we have a look here on the periodic table, an atom that has 9 protons in its nucleus is what's known as fluorine. Okay, so it's a completely different atom. So you can't, the number of protons that are present within the nucleus of an atom is very specific, and it's what distinguishes one atom from another. Okay, and that's represented by the smaller number on the periodic table, which is known as the atomic number. Now, also as well, what you'll notice is if you count the number of electrons that we have, so we have 8 protons, and if we count the number of electrons, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You've also got 8 protons as well, or sorry, 8 electrons. So again, the atomic number can represent the number of protons and also the number of electrons. Now, if we think about this as well, so we have 8 protons, okay, and they are all negatively charged. So we have 8 negative charges, and then we have the electrons, okay, so we have 8 electrons. So we have, sorry, the protons are positively charged, we have 8 positive charges. And we have 8 negative charges. Okay, so what you'll notice is that if we've 8 positive charges and we've 8 negative charges, what's going to happen is these will cancel each other out, and the overall charge on the atom is 0. Okay, so there's no overall charge on the atom. So this is the overall charge is 0. Okay, so now with atoms, what can happen is the atoms can lose electrons. Okay, so they can actually lose and gain electrons. And what happens is if they lose or gain electrons, they become charged. Okay, so they'll either have a negative charge or a positive charge depending on if they lose or gain electrons. And then what happens is they change into what's called an ion. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. But what happens is you can lose these electrons can move in and out and be lost and gained in relation to the atom.